Hello, my beautiful Taurus. I'm so happy you're here today. Take a slow, deep breath with me. Let yourself settle into this moment. There is no rush, no pressure. Just allow your heart to be open to whatever resonates with you. If this message finds you today, there may be something your soul has quietly been ready to hear. Okay, let's see what these cards are trying to reveal. The very first thing I noticed when I laid your cards on the table was how calm they felt. Not loud, not chaotic, just deeply reassuring. Oh my God, it's almost like the energy has been waiting for you to finally stop carrying so much on your shoulders. Taurus, you've spent so much time being the strong one. You've kept showing up, even when life felt heavier than anyone realized. You kept working, kept sacrificing, kept believing that if you stayed patient long enough, eventually something would begin to change. Sometimes it probably felt like no one truly saw how much effort it took just to keep moving forward. Then the Ten of Pentacles appeared, and the atmosphere of the entire reading shifted. I couldn't help but smile, because this card doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like a quick win or a lucky break. It feels lasting. It feels like something solid is finally beginning to grow beneath your feet. I keep feeling that many of you have been building a foundation for years without realizing how close you were to seeing the results. Even when progress seemed invisible, every choice you made, every lesson you learned, every difficult season became another stone in that foundation. There is something beautiful about your energy right now. It doesn't feel like someone chasing success anymore. It feels like someone who is slowly becoming ready to receive it. Those are two very different places to stand. One comes from fear, the other comes from trust. And somehow, your spirit feels much closer to trust than it has in a very long time. The star quietly entered the reading beside the Ten of Pentacles, and suddenly, everything felt lighter. Yeah, this card has such a gentle presence today. It almost feels as though hope has been patiently sitting beside you all along, even during the moments when you couldn't recognize it. There may have been nights when you questioned whether all your effort was worth it, whether life would ever become easier, whether peace was something meant for other people instead of you. Yet this reading keeps whispering that your story may be entering a very different chapter. That doesn't mean every answer arrives overnight. It simply feels as though your heart is no longer carrying the same weight it once did. Little by little, you're beginning to imagine a future that doesn't revolve around surviving every single day. You're beginning to picture mornings that feel peaceful instead of stressful. Decisions that come from confidence instead of fear. A life where money is no longer the center of every worry. When the Ace of Pentacles showed itself, I actually paused for a moment. This feels different. It feels fresh, like a door you've never seen before, quietly opening in front of you. I don't know exactly what form it will take, because every Taurus watching has their own journey. For some, it could be a new opportunity. For others, a project you've been dreaming about. For someone else, it might simply be the courage to finally say yes to yourself after saying yes to everyone else for so long. One thing keeps coming back into my mind. This opportunity doesn't seem interested in changing who you are. It seems ready to reward who you've already become. And then, the Empress arrived, wrapping the entire reading in an energy that feels warm, abundant, and incredibly peaceful. She almost smiles at you as if she's reminding you that life isn't only about pushing harder. Sometimes, it's about allowing yourself to believe that beautiful things can find their way to you too. Taurus, you've spent enough time believing that everything valuable has to come through exhaustion. Maybe this next chapter asks something very different of you. Maybe it asks you to receive with the same grace you've always given to everyone else. I have a feeling these cards are only beginning to reveal what they've been holding back, because the energy continues to unfold in a way that feels surprisingly beautiful. Let's keep going together. Something about the energy begins to shift here, Taurus. It almost feels like standing in front of a door that has always existed, except today, you finally notice that it's unlocked. That's the feeling I keep getting as I look at the Wheel of Fortune. It's quiet, but it's unmistakable. Life has a way of changing long before we fully recognize that it's changing, and many of you may already be seeing little moments that don't seem random anymore. A conversation that arrives unexpectedly, an email that catches your attention, an idea that refuses to leave your mind, a feeling that says, maybe I should finally try this. The Wheel of Fortune doesn't rush you. It simply reminds you that seasons are always moving. You have lived through seasons where everything demanded more effort than it seemed to give back. There were times when every step forward felt like it required 10 times more energy than it should have. You learned resilience because you had no other choice. You learned patience because life kept asking for it. Yet something inside this reading feels different. It feels like the current is beginning to flow in your direction instead of against you. Yeah, I think that's what makes this moment feel so emotional. You may not need to force every opportunity into existence anymore. Some of them seem ready to find you because of the person you've quietly become over the years. The Ace of Pentacles appears once again, almost as if it doesn't want you to overlook what is approaching. I don't feel this card is trying to convince you to chase everything. Quite the opposite. It almost feels selective, as though life is asking you to pay attention to the opportunity that brings peace rather than pressure. The one that feels stable instead of chaotic. The one that allows you to grow without constantly questioning your worth. For some of you, this may look like accepting a new position that values your experience. For others, it could be creating something of your own that finally begins attracting the right people. It may even be a financial decision you've been postponing because fear kept whispering that the timing wasn't right. Oh my God, what if the timing is becoming much closer than you've allowed yourself to believe? I also notice how gently the Empress stays present throughout this reading. She doesn't seem interested in asking you to work harder. She almost encourages you to soften your grip. Taurus, you've spent so much of your life believing that carrying everything alone was the safest way to protect yourself. You became dependable because you had to, responsible because someone needed to be, strong because weakness didn't seem like an option. But strength isn't disappearing here, it's evolving. The version of you these cards keep pointing toward isn't exhausted. It isn't constantly proving itself. It isn't measuring success by how much it sacrifices. Instead, it feels balanced, comfortable receiving support. Comfortable accepting opportunities without immediately wondering what hidden cost might come later. That's such a different way of living, isn't it? The Four of Wands brings another beautiful feeling into the room. I almost see someone taking a deep breath after holding it for far too long. There is warmth here. Celebration, a sense that something meaningful deserves to be acknowledged. Maybe not because you've reached the finish line, but because you've finally reached a place where you can recognize how far you've already come. You know, many people wait until everything is perfect before allowing themselves to feel proud. Taurus rarely does that. You tend to keep moving the finish line farther away, telling yourself you'll celebrate after one more achievement, one more goal, one more responsibility. Yet these cards almost smile and ask, what if today is already worthy of gratitude? What if this version of you deserves recognition before the destination is fully visible? That question lingers with me, because abundance often begins in moments exactly like this. Not when every answer has arrived, but when your heart slowly stops expecting disappointment around every corner. The signs around you may become easier to notice from here. A chance meeting, an unexpected invitation, a door opening where you thought there had only been a wall. None of them need to arrive dramatically to matter. Sometimes the biggest turning points begin with something so ordinary that we almost overlook it. I have a feeling these gentle shifts are preparing us for an even deeper conversation, because the next cards seem ready to reveal the only thing that might still be asking for your attention before everything else begins to unfold. There is something quietly lingering beneath the surface, Taurus. It doesn't feel like an obstacle standing in your way anymore. It feels more like an old voice that still occasionally follows you, even though you've already walked far beyond the place where it was born. The Knight of Cups reversed caught my attention almost immediately, and instead of feeling heavy, it felt incredibly honest. I think this card wants us to have a conversation that isn't really about money at all. It's about what you believe you're allowed to receive. Somewhere along your journey, you may have learned that life always comes with a price, that if something feels too good, it probably won't last, that peace is temporary. That abundance belongs to someone else. Maybe nobody ever said those exact words to you, yet experiences have a way of writing stories inside us without asking permission. Those stories become so familiar that they begin sounding like intuition when they're actually memories wearing a different voice. That's why I don't feel this reading is asking you to fight your fears. It almost invites you to recognize them with compassion. Imagine that younger version of yourself who believed they had to earn every moment of rest, every compliment, every opportunity, every dollar. They did the best they could with what they knew. They helped you survive seasons that truly demanded resilience. But survival and living are not always the same thing. Yeah, I keep feeling that distinction becoming more important. The Knight of Cups reversed almost whispers, "You don't have to keep proving yourself." Those words may sound simple, but I wonder how deeply they reach your heart. How much of your life has been spent believing that your value depended on how productive you were? How often have you questioned whether you deserved something beautiful before it even had a chance to arrive? Those questions seem to soften as the Page of Pentacles steps into the reading. I actually smiled when this card appeared because the energy changes in such a gentle way. It doesn't arrive carrying perfection, it carries curiosity. It feels like someone beginning to trust themselves one small step at a time. Someone who doesn't know every answer yet, but no longer feels afraid of learning. This card reminds me that growth rarely happens through one dramatic breakthrough. More often, it happens quietly. One different decision, one healthier belief. One moment where you choose possibility instead of fear. Taurus, I wonder if you've already started making those choices without even realizing it. Maybe you've begun saying yes to opportunities you once would have avoided. Maybe you're speaking more kindly to yourself than you did a year ago. Maybe you're finally allowing yourself to imagine a future that feels lighter instead of assuming everything must remain difficult. Oh my God, those little changes matter so much more than people realize. They become the foundation for an entirely different life. The Page of Pentacles keeps looking toward the horizon, almost excited about what hasn't happened yet. Not because everything is guaranteed, but because there is finally room for hope to breathe again. There is room to believe that your efforts have meaning beyond simply getting through another day. That feeling grows even brighter when the sun appears. I don't know how else to describe it except by saying the entire reading seems to take a deep breath. Everything feels warmer, clearer, more open. It's almost as though the light isn't arriving from somewhere outside of you. It's revealing something that has quietly been growing inside you all along. Confidence doesn't suddenly appear one morning. It develops through countless moments where you keep choosing yourself, even when doubt tries to convince you otherwise. The sun almost smiles at you with remarkable gentleness. It isn't asking you to become someone different. It simply encourages you to stop hiding the person you've already become. The wisdom you've earned, the strength you've carried, the kindness you've continued offering, despite everything you've experienced. Those qualities have value that reaches far beyond finances. I have a feeling your relationship with abundance is changing because your relationship with yourself is changing first. That's often where the deepest transformations begin. As your own sense of worth becomes steadier, the opportunities around you seem to respond in ways that feel surprisingly natural. There is still another layer waiting beneath these cards, though. something connected to your past that seems ready to return, not to reopen old wounds, but to reveal gifts you may have forgotten were ever yours. There is a beautiful sense of familiarity surrounding the cards here, Taurus. Not because life is asking you to go backward, but because something meaningful from your past seems ready to find its place in your future. The moment the Six of Cups appeared, I couldn't stop thinking about all the pieces of your journey that may have felt unfinished. Isn't it interesting how life sometimes circles back to the very things we believed had already slipped away? This doesn't feel like the past returning to remind you of regret. It feels like the past returning to reveal value you couldn't fully recognize before. Maybe it's a dream you quietly set aside because other responsibilities demanded your attention. Maybe it's a skill that always came naturally to you but never seemed important enough to pursue. Maybe it's something you created years ago that never received the appreciation it deserved. Whatever it is, the energy feels surprisingly alive, almost as though it has been waiting patiently until the timing felt more aligned with the person you've become. The Six of Cups carries such a gentle warmth today. It almost smiles, as if it's saying, nothing beautiful was ever truly wasted. I know many Taurus people have a habit of looking back at certain chapters and wondering if they should have chosen differently. What if I had taken that opportunity? What if I had believed in myself sooner? What if I hadn't walked away? Those questions are so human, yet these cards don't seem interested in keeping you trapped there. They simply invite you to notice that every experience has quietly been preparing you for what comes next. Yeah. Even the chapters that felt like failures, especially those. Sometimes we imagine success arrives by avoiding mistakes, but real wisdom usually grows because of them. Every disappointment taught you something about your values. Every closed door refined your direction. Every delay strengthened a part of you that couldn't have developed any other way. Looking back today, you may begin to realize that life wasn't working against you nearly as often as it felt. The Page of Pentacles appears again, almost carrying a small gift in its hands. This card feels curious, hopeful, and open to possibility. I wonder if one of the greatest opportunities waiting for you isn't something completely new at all. It may simply be an old talent viewed through fresh eyes. Perhaps people are finally ready for something you've always had to offer. Perhaps you've finally become willing to place real value on abilities you've taken for granted for years. Oh my God, that thought keeps coming back. How often do we underestimate the very gifts that come most naturally to us? Those gifts sometimes become invisible simply because we've lived with them for so long. The Wheel of Fortune quietly joins the conversation again, and I notice how naturally everything seems to connect. The timing doesn't feel accidental. Pieces that once appeared unrelated begin fitting together in ways you couldn't have planned. A conversation leads to another conversation. An old contact reaches out unexpectedly. Someone remembers your name at exactly the right moment. A forgotten idea suddenly makes perfect sense in today's world. None of these moments have to be dramatic to become life-changing. Taurus, I have a feeling you'll start recognizing little synchronicities more often. Small reminders that your journey has been weaving together for much longer than you realized. Instead of seeing disconnected events, you may begin seeing a story that has quietly been unfolding all along. The sun brings even more warmth into this realization. It almost feels like standing outside after days of cloudy weather and noticing that everything looks different under natural light. The landscape hasn't changed overnight. Your perspective has. The confidence growing inside you allows you to see possibilities where fear once saw limitations. That alone changes so much. I also keep sensing gratitude becoming an important part of this chapter. Not gratitude because every experience was easy, but gratitude because every experience helped shape someone wiser, kinder, and far more resilient than they once believed possible. There is incredible strength in recognizing that nothing you've lived through needs to be erased for your future to become beautiful. Every lesson seems to have found its purpose. Every season seems to have carried a hidden gift. Every step appears to have been leading you closer to a version of yourself that is finally ready to embrace a different way of living. The final cards of this reading carry an especially peaceful energy, Taurus. They don't feel rushed. They don't feel uncertain. They simply invite you to see what life may look like when you fully believe that the abundance you've been growing toward has been growing toward you as well. There is a quiet confidence surrounding these final cards, Taurus. It doesn't feel loud or dramatic. It feels like the kind of peace that arrives after someone has spent years learning who they truly are. The Nine of Pentacles stands so gracefully in front of this reading that I almost forgot I was looking at a tarot card. It feels more like looking at a future version of you. Someone who wakes up in the morning without carrying the same financial weight on their shoulders. Someone who finally has enough room to breathe, to create, to enjoy life, instead of constantly trying to keep up with it. Yeah, I think that's what touches me the most. This reading has never been about becoming someone completely different. It's about allowing yourself to experience life from a place that feels lighter. A place where your choices aren't driven by fear every single time. Imagine how different life begins to feel when every decision isn't filtered through the question, "Can I afford this?" or "What if everything falls apart?" That shift changes far more than your finances. It changes your relationships, your health, your confidence, even the way you dream about your future. The Nine of Pentacles keeps reminding me that true abundance isn't measured only by numbers. It's measured by freedom. Freedom to say yes to what matters. Freedom to say no without guilt. Freedom to spend your energy building a life that actually feels like your own, instead of one built entirely around survival. Oh my God! What a beautiful place to imagine yourself standing. The sun returns once more, almost smiling, as though it has been waiting for this exact moment. There is so much warmth in this card. It feels like the first morning after a long season of uncertainty, when you open the curtains and realize the light has been outside all along. Sometimes we spend so much time preparing for the next challenge that we forget to notice when life is becoming gentler. Perhaps that's part of your lesson here, learning to recognize peace without questioning whether it will disappear, learning to celebrate progress before perfection arrives, learning to believe that happiness doesn't always have to be followed by disappointment. That may sound simple, but for someone who has carried responsibility for so long, it can be one of the biggest transformations of all. The Ten of Pentacles quietly appears again, almost bringing the entire reading full circle. I love that this card returns because it doesn't feel like a promise wrapped in fantasy. It feels grounded, stable, built one step at a time. Everything you've experienced seems to have been shaping not only your future, but also your ability to sustain it. There is wisdom you've earned that money alone could never teach. There is resilience that cannot be purchased. There is patience that has become one of your greatest strengths. Those qualities may become just as valuable as every opportunity that finds you. I also notice how differently you may begin seeing yourself from this point forward. Instead of asking whether you're worthy enough, you may naturally begin asking what kind of life truly reflects your worth. That's such a powerful shift. One question comes from doubt, the other comes from self-respect. The Four of Wands brings the sweetest feeling to close this reading. I almost picture laughter filling a home, a peaceful dinner, a deep exhale after years of carrying invisible pressure. Moments that don't seem extraordinary to anyone else, yet mean everything to the person who has spent so long fighting to reach them. Success doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as contentment. Taurus, if these cards are encouraging anything today, it may simply be this. When opportunity gently knocks on your door, don't let old fears answer for you. Let the version of yourself who has grown through every challenge answer instead. Let the person who has learned, healed, and continued believing despite every setback take that first step forward. You don't have to become more deserving before accepting something beautiful. You don't have to earn permission to experience peace. You don't have to apologize for wanting a life that feels balanced, joyful, and secure. Maybe that's the real gift hidden inside this entire reading. Not just the possibility of greater abundance, but the quiet realization that you've been growing into someone capable of receiving it all along. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Taurus. If this reading resonated with your heart, take what feels true for your own journey and leave behind anything that doesn't. Be gentle with yourself. Keep trusting your path. You are far closer to the life you've been building than you may realize, and I truly can't wait to see where your journey leads from here. Until our next reading, take good care of yourself. Goodbye, my beautiful Taurus.